Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Torah study, Thursday night. This week we studied the portion of Lech Lecha, the third portion in which God commands Abraham to leave his homeland and travel towards the Holy Land. In preparing for the lesson, like many times, I'm kind of torn which topic to pick, and I realize with a short of time we don't have that much. So this time we'll start from the beginning. In the beginning, we're starting on page 66 in our Chumash, chapter 12, verse 1. God told Abraham, Lech Lecha, go further away for yourself or to yourself from your land, your birthplace, and your father's house, to the land which I will show you. This is the text the way it appears in the Torah. Why didn't he tell him where to go? Why don't he say to him, go to Israel, go to the land of Canaan? He did not reveal the location. I'm going to share with you very quickly what appears in the Chumash, and then I'll share with you that those of us who attended the Torah study on Shabbat morning have heard that before, if you remember, and then we'll go in to a few more reasons. The first one is Rashi. God did not reveal the land to him immediately in order to make it dear in Abraham's eyes and to give him reward for every statement about the land. The last part, and to give him reward, I'll be expanding in a moment. Rashi says to make it dear to him, he did not reveal it to him so that it be a mystery. When it's a mystery, someone appreciates it more. Or Chaim, a very famous holy man that lived in Morocco, is buried in Israel. He says God did tell him where to go, but the Torah does not relate this detail since it is self-understood. Or Chaim says God told him where to go. Torah did not bother sharing with us because it's obvious where it was, where the location is. About Benel, a third, God didn't want others to follow Abraham, so he didn't inform him of his destination. He wanted to make sure no one follows Abraham. Only Abraham should be rewarded for the travel, and therefore he did not reveal the location, so no one should follow. Bala Turim, the word Areka, I will show you, has the same numerical value as the word Ba'ananim, in clouds. This hints to the fact that Abraham was guided by clouds to the appropriate land. Balaturim says, the word I will show you is the same number as with clouds. Says Balaturim that actually when God had told Abraham, I will show you where to go, he meant to say to him, there will be a cloud you follow, and that cloud will guide you to where you belong. When you reach your destination, you will know where you belong by the way the cloud takes you. Now, the Rashi, as I just mentioned, said that God did not share with him the location so that he can reward him for every step he is making towards the Holy Land. Commentators ask, what's the difference between telling him where he's going versus not telling him? The steps, the number of steps one takes are the same. According to Rashi, the reason he wasn't told where the location he's going to is to reward him for every step. But even if he told him where he's going to, there is still a very clear number of steps we'll take before we reach that place. The following are three different answers, and actually there are many, many more. One rabbi says that if I know where I'm supposed to go, I will find a shortcut I wouldn't take the ordinary path. If somebody told me you have to make it to the post office downtown Sarasota, I may not necessarily take down Dowd Street and then US 41 all the way to Ringling Boulevard and then turn left. I may take a shortcut, take Beneva Road all the way to Bay Vista. So therefore, God did not allow him to know his destination so that he can keep going and going and going. Had he revealed to him the location, Abraham might have made many, many fewer steps to reach that destination. And that's what Rashi means by saying to reward him for every step. By not telling him where he's going to be rewarded greatly. Number two, and this is another point, it addresses another point. According to Rashi, he got rewarded for when God says to him, there is another question that it is addressing here. God tells them, if you read the text, God tells them, if you read the text, God tells them that he should to go away from his land, from his country, and he tells them, from your birthplace and from your father's house, from your land, from your town, and from your house, from the house in which you're born, from your birthplace. The way that if someone wants to say something of similar, it should be the exactly reverse. First you tell someone, leave your home. Then you tell them, leave your town. Then you tell them, leave your country. God tells Abraham, leave your country, leave your town, leave your home. Why is it the other way around? As we'll find out in a moment, but Rashi tells us that God is speaking to him in a superfluous manner to add more reward for every word he's speaking to Abraham. The longer the conversation, the longer the reward. And one of the explanation given is that ties very well with not giving him the location, is that when Abraham packed up, God says to him, you live in your home forever, you will never go back. Abraham is packing up together with Sarah and Lot. Lot, his nephew, also joined them, as the Torah tells us. They have about, let's say, 10, 15 suitcases. Those days, they didn't pack any books because there was no books yet. So that all they had, there was no electronics, there was no computers or TVs. All they did is few garments and dishes, and they were on the camels. They come into a place, and somebody says, wow, you're moving. Where are you going? And the guy, Abraham, would say, I don't know. Really, you don't know? What do you mean you don't know? You don't have a destination. He says, no. And the guy would say to Abraham, are you out of your mind? And Abraham says, no, God, my Lord, told me to go. And he didn't give you a place to go. He said, no. He didn't give you a map. He didn't give you a location, nothing. And you're going? He says, yes, I'm going. God says to me too, God says, go. So I go. And that's the conversation he carried. Part of that conversation was to reveal to the more people about the existence of God and that he has a full faith in God. By the way, that explains another question. The other question is, God says to him, please go to the land that I'll show you and I will make you famous. I will make you very large and I'll make you very rich. God is giving it to telling it to him right away. According to Jewish tradition, one of the tests, sorry, let me block all the notifications. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. According to many of our sages, Abraham was tested by leaving his country to go to the land of Canaan. But if God is promising him so much in return, God tells him you're going to be so wealthy, you're going to have a large family and expand it, you'll be very famous. Where is the test? One of the explanations is that the reason God did not give him the location is because he was asking them to speak to the people he comes in contact with, so that when they inquire where is he going, he will have the opportunity to reveal to them about God, and that he has a full faith in God without any doubts. And this way, that explains why the location was not revealed, so that he has a better conversation, much longer conversation. And that's why Rashi said he should be rewarded for every step and every speech, every conversation that he had. Because not having the location caused Abraham to have numerous conversations. By the way, part of the reason, according to the commentators, that Abraham had to travel, as we read that even when he arrived in Israel, Vayavor Avram Ba'aretz, Abraham kept traveling within the Holy Land. According to some sages, it is to make sure that Abraham, who is about to open up to pitch a tent with 4 different entrances to allow for guests to benefit, he needed to experience. And there are many stories to it. I'm going to share with you very briefly. One of them, Rabbi Nachum of Chernobyl, very famous rabbi, his mitzvah that he loved was to help people get out of jail. Those days, people who were going to jail, not for crimes, but for not paying the rent on time. And they would be in a dungeon, in jail, until someone paid whatever they owed. And that's what he did. One day, he ended up in jail himself. He was wondering what is he done, because he wasn't committing any crime. And he said that while in jail, an older man appeared to him and said to him, "You know why God sent you to this place? Because you're so busy taking people out of jail. God wanted you to experience what they go through. So sometimes you have already the money. You say, okay, 2 more days I'll go to the governor and I'll help. Or in 2 more days I'll collect the money. That's why God wanted you to feel it, so that you know how it feels. And hopefully you'll be much more careful." I think Abraham is in the same situation. Abraham is about to pitch a tent where he's going to host and allow people to benefit from a nice resting place, a place where they can enjoy food. God wanted them to appreciate what it means to be a stranger on the road, and how it feels when someone offers you a cup of tea, how it feels when someone says, "Come, sit down under air conditioning, you'll be able to enjoy a nice meal." This way, when he does it with much great fervor, a lot more joy, and he's able to, so to say, share so much more joy with all the guests. So that's why God does not give him a location, because God don't want him to run very fast. God wants him to take his time. That's why God don't give him a location, because God don't want him to take shortcuts. And in addition, God wants him to have conversations with people when they inquire for where is he going. When he answer that he doesn't know, they will go into the conversation of why, and he will explain to them that it came from God, the Lord that created the entire universe. And this way, they will be able to have a better conversation with about God, discovering God. Um, that explains one more thing, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to condense so much into the one thing. I shared with you before that the order in which it was written doesn't make sense. Usually you tell a person, go from your home, from your city, from your country. God tells Abraham, go out from your country, go out from your city, go out from your home, which is kind of puzzling. Many commentators are trying to explain it. The following is the Rebbe's explanation, which is the spiritual, the Kabbalistic. I'm reading it on page 67, if you have the book. In the last word, the Rebbe says very briefly the following. The practical message within the opening of our portion is the way God says, he says like that. From you land, go away from your worldliness, from your physical desire. Land is the ground that refer to physical desire. So God says, you want to come closer to me, you want to be blessed, you want to expand, You have to go away from your worldly desires. That's the land. From your birthplace, do not do mitzvot, God's commandment by rote, as a habitual routine, which you were brought up to follow. Go away from your home, from the place you're born, from your town, meaning that the traditions, the way you used to, and you continue doing it without even knowing why, and never stopping to think about what you do. It's time for you to reconsider your relationship with God, where you do everything with your full mindset, understanding why, enjoying the process, and concentrating on what you do. And then from your father's house, he says the Hasidic thought, wisdom is refers to a father. Father and mother is wisdom and knowledge, as we'll discover in Je'elai dwelling next in 2 weeks. The Torah tells us, go away from your father, don't be a wise guy. Go away from your father's house refers to the way when we serve God, it should be done is just follow the way God wants and not to try and be a wise guy. So that's when you will be able to land, to arrive in a place where I wanted you and show you. In other words, there are 3 traits that require for a person to be able to connect to God. And that's why it starts land, meaning the country. It moves on to the city, and then it goes on to the house, the birthplace, the house of your father, because it's all referred to the way a person is raised and the way a person lives a life in a spiritual way. I want to move into one more um, uh, point. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, just to summarize the whole thing, the Rebbe points out that God did not tell him. So we have different reasons why God did not share with them the location, the destination. And I shared with you all the details, the reason behind. The Rebbe points out that the land of Canaan belonged to Shem. Shem is the son of Noah, who received the land of Canaan as a gift. Abraham and his father Terach left their homeland to go back to their family. Their family lived in Canaan. So it was a natural place. It was obvious where he's going. And therefore, the Torah did not need to tell us where to go. God didn't need to tell him where to go. There is another problem with this text, and it's all within the text that I'm sharing, and there is much more, is why does God tell him where to go from? It is obvious. Why didn't God say to him, please go to the land that I will show you? We find that God says to him, go from your land, from the country, from the city, from your home in which you're brought up, to the land that I will show you. All of that is superfluous, or there is no use for it. Should have been written, go to the land that I will show you. But um, according to what we shared with you, the spiritual way, the only way to connect and with God is by the spiritual removal from your land, from the earthly matter, from being a wise guy, from doing things by rote, which are the three steps of leaving your homeland. I hope I made myself clear because I'm trying to cover so much in a few words. There is one more point. It's just curious, and to me, I very much appreciate it. That's why I want to show it to you. On page 69, it says that when Abraham arrived in a town called Shechem, Shechem is Nablus. It's one of the 6 holy cities. Abraham was continuously moving around the country of Israel until he came to Shechem, to Nablus, and that's when he pitched his tent. How did he know? According to Baal HaTurim, I think I shared with you before, there was a tent, there was a cloud, and the cloud landed, and the cloud signaled to him that's the place to stay. According to others, that's when God told them that's your place to be. However, the word tent in Hebrew, the tent, pitching the tent, can be written his tent or olo, or her tent or olah. If the Vav appeared at the end of the word Ohel, Ohel is tent. If the Vav, letter Vav, appear at the end, it's his. If a Hey appears at the end, it is hers. Now, we read that Abraham pitched his tent, meaning his tent. But if you look in the text, you'll find the letter Hey, not Vav. So if you had no vowel, you would read it as her tent. Rashi, this is seems minute, but to me, I'm very much appreciated. Rashi says, Abraham pitched her tent before pitching his. That's why the Torah changes saying pitching her tent in the written form, even though you read it as his tent, yet the Torah writes it with a different letter to remind us the respect man needs to give his wife by pitching her tent before his. That's Rashi. The Baal HaTurim, one of the greatest sages, asked, where did Rashi get it from? Where did Rashi come to an idea that he pitched her tent before his just because of that letter, even though it means differently? At the end of the day, we read it as his tent. The Rebbe points out that obviously Rashi did not need a source for it for a simple reason. Every child who grows up in a Jewish home will tell you of his own experience how the father respects his mother. It is obvious that when you travel and you arrive at a destination, if you go into a hotel with your wives and she has a suitcase and you have a suitcase, who do you open up and hang clothes first? The wives, not the husband, her dresses, or the shaitel if she's married. All her wardrobes are hung first. And if there is a little space in the closet, then your pants, your shirts, your bathing suit, that's when it goes. Rashi says to us, says the Rebbe, we didn't need a source for it. It was obvious because this is the way the Jewish home is built from the beginning of days. That whenever you have an opportunity for a husband and wife, and there needs to be something needs to be done for both, the wife comes first before the husband. Okay, so that's the point that I wanted to share. I thought you might appreciate it. The next topic I wanted to talk about, and obviously we're not going to cover not even part of it, but it's a little touch, is Abraham is about to get into the land of Egypt, and he looked at his wife, and behold, she's very beautiful. She may be taken away, and they will kill him as the husband of this beautiful wife. So what does he say? On page 70 or 71 in English, and chapter 12, verse 70, verse 13, he says to Sarah, please say that you are my sister, so that they will favor me because of you, and my life will be spared thanks to you. And Rashi adds, and they will give me gifts. So he's asking Sarah to lie, that she is his sister, so that his life will be spared. But she might end up in jail. She might end up with Pharaoh. And by the way, once she's with Pharaoh, Abraham will be forbidden from continuing living with her. By Jewish law, if a wife was taken away willingly and lived with another man or slept with another man, she cannot no longer continue to live with the man she is with and the husband. They both are not to have any relations with that lady anymore. So on the account that Abraham might lose his wife forever, he would favor living, surviving. The fact that Sarah is going to be taken away, it seems, has no bearing, and it doesn't bother him. And later we read that actually, as they enter to Egypt, the servants of Pharaoh, they discover her, and she's very beautiful. They decided she deserved to be the queen, and they took her by force to Pharaoh. God punishes Pharaoh and his household, and they discover that she's married, and he returned her back to her husband with gifting him great number of animals, servants, gold and silver, etc. The question is, why Abraham did this scam? In addition to the fact that it did not work out, at the end of the day they took her, but why is he putting her on the line just to save himself? So we have several answers. We're not going to get to the Rebbe's answer because we don't have time, so I'm going to share with you very briefly the answers. Nachmanides says Abraham committed a sin. He's the only one who is very critical of Abraham, saying Abraham should have not left Israel, even though there was a famine. He should have stayed in Israel. He went to Egypt. That one sin, it caused him to do another sin, and that is to lie that she's his sister. He should have not done that. He should have trusted God. Acting the way he did, he shows he did not have any trust in God. That's Nachmanides. Abarbanel says Abraham was willing to sacrifice his life to save Sarah from being abducted. However, he realized that if he had been identified as Sarah's husband, they would have killed them and abducted her in any case. Therefore, allowing himself to be killed for her sake would have been totally futile. He says to himself, if I say I'm the husband, I'm not going to defend her. She's going to be taken regardless. So why should I be killed and she's going to be abducted? At least I'll be spared and stay alive, and she'll be abducted regardless. That's Abarbanel. Ber Maim Chaim, another rabbi, says Abraham did not tell the Egyptians that Sarah was not married. Rather, he says that her husband had not accompanied them. Consequently, Abraham was not suggesting in any way to the Egyptians that Sarah was available for marriage. He simply saw no benefit in revealing to them that he was her husband. Ber Maim Chaim says that he didn't say to them she's single. He said to them she's my sister and her husband is not here. So hoping that being a married wife, they wouldn't force her to go into Pharaoh. However, this plan did not work out. Gur Aryeh, another rabbi, the Maharal of Prague, Abraham did not expect that Sarah would be abducted at all. He thought that the aristocrats of Egypt would offer him gifts in an attempt to win his favor, and so Abraham would give Sarah to them. He was sure that they would not be thugs that would take her by force. He did not expect the king himself to abduct her. Abarbanel says Abraham figured if he says I'm a brother, they will offer him gifts and ask permission before taking her. At the end of the day, they didn't ask permission, they just were acting like thugs, forcing her against her and his will. Tiferet Yonatan, Rabbi Yonatan of Eibeshit, says that the patriarchs had the halachic status of a Jews only in the land of Israel. Once they cross to Egypt, they do not follow Jewish law. Therefore, when he said to his wife, you are my sister, in reality, what he did is divorcing her. Get the certificate of divorce applied to a Jew. Now, the people before they received the Torah, before Mount Sinai, the patriarchs followed the Torah and are obligated to follow while living in Israel. As soon as he entered Egypt, it says when they entered Egypt, that's when he told it to her. By doing so, he actually divorced her. This way, if she had a relationship with Pharaoh, it will not be forbidden and he can remarry her. The Zohar gives us a whole different story that I wanted to concentrate on. The Zohar says the goal was to receive gifts from the house of Pharaoh. And he knew that nothing will happen to Sarah because she was very holy. All he wanted, so he knew that on the account of Sarah's holiness, he will be protected as well. And actually, that's what the text reads. And he wanted to make sure he received gifts from the house of Pharaoh. And that's why we read that after that, when he returned back to Israel, he was very heavy loaded with lots of gifts from the house of Pharaoh. The Rebbe points out that the Zohar's explanation actually accommodates all the questions we had. However, we're running out of time, so we'll stop right here. And I thank you very much for participating. God wanted them to appreciate what it means to be a stranger